Let's talk about Croatia. And you know, when Croatia joined the European Union, it was considered a good thing. And there were some good things that came out of it. But now it's, for many Croatians, it's starting to feel more like a liability being part of the European Union. And of course, it raised prices. Now, I don't remember whether you actually switched over to the euro or not.
Yes. Yeah.
You have. So that made a difference too. People say, well, prices double when a country goes to the euro. I'm not sure that it's quite that bad.
Yes, it's bad.
in some ways it is. And so, you know, that's, I think there's a lot of people that are not so happy about going to the euro and ending up paying higher prices. What would I say about Croatia that's different than Serbia, besides the EU being the obvious thing? Because having spent a lot of time in both countries, I really see that during the Balkan Wars, where they were considered enemies, to me it didn't make any sense. You know, it's all totally contrived from the top down. You know, it's like, we're just declaring that the Serbs are now our enemies, or the Croats are our enemies, or whatever. You know, and certainly there were people who bought into that and started hating the Serbs or hating the Croats. But I think for the most part, we have Tesla, for example, whose birthplace is in Croatia, but he's celebrated in Serbia and spent time in both areas. And so I think I tried to bring peace between the Ukrainians and the Russians when I was in both countries, but that didn't work out so well. I think that Croats and Serbs, I think have really put that, it's a generation ago now, basically, when they were at each other's throats. And so I think that now it's time to, with the newer generation, they've grown up without war between the two countries. And so I think that's the peacemakers among the younger people now are going to decide a lot about what goes on between the two countries. So speaking of Croatia and their proximity to the, shall we say, the power structures of Europe, Belgium and Germany, and to some extent France and the Netherlands, but mostly I would say Germany and Belgium, being that they're, not that far away geographically or politically. I think it's going to be a little bit tricky because there's going to be, I guess, what you call austerity measures in the European Union in the future. There's going to be there is a slow motion collapse of the currency in the West. That would be the dollar, the euro, and the British pound. It's a slow motion collapse. It's not that noticeable right now. In fact, the ruble just went down against the dollar recently. And so the Mexican peso also went down against the dollar. But in the long term, the dollar's days are numbered. It doesn't matter whether Republicans or Democrats are in office. It's one of those mathematical certainties, like this Titanic having all its compartments flooded and there's no way to keep it from sinking. And the question is, how fast is it going to sink, and how many countries are going to go down with the ship? And of course, Europe is very heavily dependent on the United States. And Mr. Trump may decide to try to sever that relationship to some degree and say, we're not going to finance Europe's involvement in NATO and so on. Now, I don't know how much money Croatia gives to NATO, or if they give any money to NATO. I'm ignorant on that subject, but I know that Mr. Trump wants every European country to contribute 5% of NATO's budget. And so I would assume that would include Croatia. And so these are the things that the Croatian people are going to have to deal with in the coming years, is the possible devaluation of the euro, which will create inflation. Price of bread maybe doubles or triples over the next few years. Right now, the price of fuel is double what it was a couple of years ago, or triple in some cases. In Croatia, it's not quite as noticeable as it is in Germany and Slovakia and a few other places where in many places it's doubled or tripled the price of fuel. Not so much petrol in automobiles, but heating natural gas, heating of houses during the winter and stuff like that. So that's going to continue to be a problem. The cost of living is going to continue to go up. My guess is that it's going to rise between 10 and 20% over the next year. Of course, they always lie about inflation and say that it's much less than it is. But people who pay everyday prices know that. So that's one area, the inflation and the slow collapse of the Western currencies. And then the BRICS alliance in the East, they're looking for ways of having their own currency among the BRICS nations, which would compete against the euro and the dollar. So my point is that economically, it looks like things are going to be quite turbulent and not so great for Europe. And it's going to affect Croatia more than Serbia because, of course, of the European Union. So hopefully that clarifies a few things. I don't think it's going to be you wake up tomorrow and the money's worthless. It's not going to be like that. Not like Zimbabwe or even Argentina, where the inflation's been over 100% up until recently. And so, but it's definitely going to 10 to 20% hurts. People are hurt by 10 to 20% inflation. So that's probably the biggest concern for Croatia, aside from the Russia-Ukraine war, is inflation.